you will become familiar with the terminology, legal significance, and practical application of compliance. You will find out why, especially in current times, compliance is important for the success of your company and how you can identify and prevent possible risks in practice. In this course, you will get to know several EU directives. Every country has its own regulations. After watching the videos, please check the specifics of your national law. If you enter compliance as a search term in Google, you will currently get more than 1.5 million results and a plethora of definitions from areas of application. The original concept of compliance comes from medicine and describes the willingness of patients to cooperate in their own recovery, for example, by regularly taking medication. The most important definition in a company context, though, comes from the economist Professor Dr. Josef Wieland. Compliance describes all formal and informal governance structures in an organization by which the management can efficiently and effectively identify, but primarily prevent, fraudulent, that is harmful, actions by members and agents of this organization. In contrast to the German Corporate Governance Code, Wieland focuses primarily on preventative measures and thus protection for the company. In summary then, compliance represents actions in a company intended to prevent damaging activities. It is important that the focus is on prevention from the start. Foresight is better than hindsight. Prevention of harmful activities is of more value than uncovering or punishing them. Before we go into the material any further, we will look at one more concept. Compliance must be understood in the context of corporate governance. This concept describes the legal and factual regulatory framework in a company for the direction and supervision of the company, that is, for the leadership of the company. Compliance protects a company internally and externally. Compliance is a concept with both internal and external effects. Internally, it affects employees, the company leadership, and collaboration with subsidiaries and sub-subsidiaries. Compliance means a uniform understanding of how the company acts. This understanding is called a code of conduct, a written policy. This code of conduct applies to every worker in the company, to individual colleagues and to the company. Once a company has invested time in a comprehensive code of conduct, it will assist collaboration in future with possible subsidiaries or sub-subsidiaries. Compliance also has a strong external effect too, though. First, indirectly. Compliance relates, for example, to behaviors that could cause scandals. If a company adheres to the expectations it places on its employees, it can demonstrate these externally as well. This reinforces the external impact of the company. Let me give you an example. To understand the impact of compliance better, we will look at two companies. In Company A, compliance is not a big issue. People just work as best they can, and if there is a problem, the legal department can give advice. In Company B, compliance is an important topic. Employees are aware of the code of conduct and can be openly expected. Let me give you an unpleasant situation as an example. An employee notices some faults during a quality control check. He must make a decision. Should he report the fault and thus stop production, or ignore the fault? In Company A, the employee really does have a range of options. He can ignore the fault and hope for the best. Perhaps that will work. Maybe, though, the fault will lead to significant material damage, or even to accidents. The company can later only claim human error and try to identify the person responsible. A scandal ultimately leads to the executive board having to take responsibility for the fault, because the individual employee cannot be identified. In Company B, the employee does not have to make any such decision. He knows he must adhere to the code of conduct. This states that, if there is doubt, then he must stop production or at least express his concerns to others. It can also be stated in the Code of Conduct that two responsible persons must decide on critical issues, or that certain issues should be referred to the executive. Compliance thus avoids damage to the company before it occurs. The internal impact of the Code of Conduct is that the employee knows what he must do. He knows his responsibilities and can also identify other responsible persons. If damage does, however, occur, compliance protects the company to the outside world. It is considerably easier to identify where and how a problem arose. The company as a whole can refer to the Code of Conduct and show that it had done everything possible to avoid the fault. In particular, important sections of the company, the supervisory board, executive, and directorship, are exonerated, that is, protected. We will look at this last point more closely in the next part. Compliance is sometimes seen as a vehicle for exculpation or exoneration. It offers structural insurance for individual sections against being liable for faults. This insurance is not just for a nice means of avoiding scandals, but is legally necessary. The legal basis for obligations and liabilities is one of the best motivators for every company to pay attention to compliance. The legal basis. EU directives. Since 2007, the EU has enacted several directives in order to deal with the financial crisis. This led to a strict EU compliance system, at least in the financial sector. One of the most popular directives is the Directive 2004/39/EG. It has been reformed and amended several times. The last amendment took place in 2014. This directive has led to multiple new laws in the member states, which are expected to be implemented from January 2017 on. The duties and obligations of the Executive Board concerning the financial sector can be derived from the already mentioned Article 54 of the Directive 2014/65/EU. Each national law additionally includes regulations which concern other branches, such as the Decree 231/2001 in Italy, or Paragraph 76 Companies Law in Germany. Now we come to some particular obligations of the individual committees. Members of the Executive Board must maintain the due diligence of a prudent businessman in their business leadership. Thus, it is also their job to evaluate risks and introduce suitable actions to manage these risks. In this context, always remember compliance risks. The Executive Board provides adequate risk management and risk control in the company. This makes it a leadership task. Collaboration between the Executive Board and the Supervisory Board is also regulated. The Executive Board keeps the Supervisory Board informed regularly, promptly, and comprehensively about all aspects of planning, business development, the risk situation of risk management, and compliance as they apply to the company. The organs of the company thus never work independently of each other. In particular, the Supervisory Board investigates deviations of business processes from plans and aims to find the reasons. That is a task for which the Supervisory Board as a whole, and in some circumstances its members, are also liable. Particular importance is attached to the chair of the Supervisory Board in the framework of corporate governance, and thus of functioning compliance. This is because it is the chair who, together with the Executive Board, especially with the chair of the Executive Board or the spokesperson of the Executive Board, must remain in regular contact. The chair must advise him on strategy, business development, and risk management in the company. This also means that the chair of the Executive Board must inform the chair of the Supervisory Board immediately about important events which are relevant to evaluating the developing situation and the leadership of the company. The chair of the Supervisory Board, in turn, must keep the Supervisory Board informed. This is especially vital if circumstances indicate a strong need for action by the Supervisory Board. In this case, the Chair of the Supervisory Board must call an extraordinary meeting of the Supervisory Board. Concerning the implementation of the compliance systems, there are different conditions depending on the branch and the country you work in. With regard to the financial sector, Article 54 of the Directive 2014/65 EU states that the management body should be responsible and accountable for the overall strategy of the firm. The management body should assume clear responsibilities across the business cycle of the firm. Please take account of the national laws with respect to other branches. What does this collaboration mean for the two organs of the compliance systems? The Executive Board installs control systems, especially a compliance system. The Supervisory Board is indirectly involved in that at all times and, more importantly, also has an interest in it because the responsibility is shared between the two committees.